Hello there, welcome back to Technology Innovation Hub. So it's going to be a session from Oracle portal. Let me share the screen. So if you take a look at the channel, now in Oracle portal, we have been doing mid-senior sessions and the beginner session. So this is going to be a beginner session. In beginner session, we have the last session that we have done. This is Cp1 lesson 5, right? I think if you can remember the login process, right? Okay, let me continue from there. So it's going to be the lesson 6 from Cp1, right? All right, let's go there. So this is the practical that we have to start. Yeah. So in this document, so this is the document that we have been following for lesson 5. And we have completed up to this place. You may remember that set in the Oracle SID system identification like this, set into a different value, and I mean we need to set it to a value where actually the actual database name where it should be we should have a parameter pipeline node, right? So we have learned all of those things, and we have learned the differences between Windows and Linux level as well. So let's continue from there. Now in this session, what you have to do, all right, so this is just to export Oracle SID that you already know now, right? So just to connect, right? And yeah, connected to Oracle database. Above is another method which directly goes to OS authentication even without prompting the password. The user connected, both cases will be sys here. So what it tells, you can right away just say SQL plus sys has sysdb without specifying username. Now here, yeah, we gave the username and we mentioned sysdb, and we learned what is sysdb already, right? And we learned here is a special role, right? And in not to some role that not to play with, right? And experienced DBA should use this one. And we have different roles: is operator, system, I mean rack, all those roles also there. We will learn it later. And yeah, so this is with username specified. Now here it says without username, this one. All right, let's try that one and see. So let me check where am I at the moment. Echo Oracle SID. Okay, I'm with ORCL, that is 12 serial database. I think you may remember we have configured multi-tier environment. I mean, we have Oracle 12.2 and 19c both in the same host. That is the environment that we configured at the very first with the very first installation. So let's connect and see now what is asking to do in the document without giving a username, right? So we just say SQL plus, we just say as sysdb, and see what happens. Okay, so that's a mistake, right? That won't work. It's a syntax error. And the correct method is, as per the document, you should give slash, right? Slash says we are bypassing the username, but just watch what happens, right? It will, it says invalid username and password. That is because I think here I have put some authentication barrier. We have learned that one as well, right? Okay, let me first remove that authentication barrier, right? All right, so what can I do? I think I have put a value to this SQL file, which we will do. We have to also learn that one, what we mean by that. But let me open that one. There's a parameter here which is okay. Let me completely remove this one, right? So I can commit it, but I'm going to remove it. All right, so let's now go back and try what you want to do here. Let's clear the screen. Now I'm trying this one. Okay, you can see right away it logged in, right? So this is what the document is asking. Just type SQL plus no username as HTTP. And it's asking to type the show user command and observe the user, because we didn't specify a user, no. But if you type show user, you will still notice the user is sys, right? It still is sys, right? Because why the reason is why, because whenever we specify sysdba is going to be logged in as sys. That's the case. That's a special privilege. So since we have administrator privileges for the Oracle OS level, because I have logged in as root and I have switched to Oracle. So therefore, I mean, passwordless authentication plus without a user also, it allows me to log in, right? But these things must be stopped at the production level. Those are security vulnerabilities, security issues. So we should not allow this type of activities to happen in production, right? Otherwise, what will happen? Everybody who has the admin rights for the operating system can right away authenticate the database as a super user. That's a dangerous thing. So CC is the super user for database, right? He has the topper. I mean, he is the top user. He has all the privileges. It's equal to root in OS, administrator in Windows, right? So we should stop this one, but this is the default behavior, right? So that's what the document also says. You can see user is sys, and above is another method. It is doing something called OS authentication. That means we never gave a password, so there's nothing called database authentication, and there's no password authentication. It uses the OS privileges and it's allowing me to authenticate by default. But one thing to remember, the OS user must be administrative user, right? He should have admin privileges. Okay, right. And what it says, please note connecting as super user, that is sys, externally no, extremely for database administrator purpose only. So that's what it says. I mentioned the same thing. You should not play with this user that is only for administration purpose, and only experience the DBA should be used in this one, right? Only experience must be used in type of connection in business production environment. All right. Security aspect of connecting ASIC. So this is what I have done for my database. That's why I couldn't log in earlier. So let's learn what we can do. So how should we stop this? So that is recommended for production environment. We should authenticate. We should allow multi-layer authentication. What do you mean multi-layer? Now, whoever who authenticates as administrator of the database, by default is allowed to the as administrator operating system. Whoever who is authenticating admin level to the operating system, by default allows to the database also as a super user or as an administrator. So we should stop that, and we should put a barrier in between this. That means even though admin authentication is allowed for the OS, but that user still can't log into the database without proper authentication. That's what we are trying to do now. So we need to enable this one in production level. So that's why 2 layers authentication we are enabling. Right? So how can you do it? It's very easy. So there's only one parameter, this SQL net.tora file. This is a very important file actually, where it will allow you to do a lot of time saving activities. What I mean by that, by just entering 1 or 2 parameters for this file, you can do a comprehensive activity. I mean, if you don't have those parameters, then the programmers have to write program to achieve those things. The same thing. Now, what I'm going to do now, I am going to block sys user. Once I add the parameter, he won't be able to log in without a password. That's what I'm going to do. Not only that, another example. Now, let's say you want to filter, right? Filter incoming requests for the database by terms of IPs. That means I don't want certain IPs to log into the database. I want only this particular IPs to log into the database. You are going to do some filtering, right? So that can be achieved by just entering 2 parameters in this file. Very easy. Allowed IPs, blocked IPs, like this. Right? So if you don't have this parameter, there are more than 300 parameters possible for this file, right? SQL.tora file. Most of the networking related and security stuff parameters, right? And without having those parameters, there will be a lot of work for you to do to achieve the same task. Right? Right. So let's try to do this. So what I have to do, there's only one entry. This one is document is given. SQL net authentication services. Right? Equal to none. Right? Now by default, there is no parameter actually, right? You saw in the file, let's go to this file. The file is what? sqlnet.tora. This is the file which is located on Oracle Home Network Admin, right? So if you locate that folder, it is here, right? Let's go back. This is what? Now I am in U01 app Oracle product 12.2 DB Home 1 network admin. The file is here. This is the file sqlnet.tora, right? So no, with a normal installation, right, there won't be any value here, right? And Oracle says the default value will be something called all, right? But by default, normally there's no value in the file. Right? So now what we're trying to do, this is the only content in the file by default with a default database creation. Now what we are trying to do, we are trying to enter a parameter for this SQL net.ora file and introduce that second layer of authentication for the database. That means after entering that particular parameter, this user won't be able to log in without a password. That's what's going to happen, right? So let's try that one. So what you have to do, very simple command. Let's go here and yeah, I can do it from here itself. Let's exit from this place. I think remember in the document we had that. This is what I can do. Even I can manually enter, that doesn't matter, but let's do it on command line. Echo, this is the parameter, and the value is none, right? Value is none, right? So what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to disable all other authentications, right? That means it will disable passwordless authentication as well, right? Because to authenticate to Oracle database, there are several methods, right? We'll try to get an idea on that one as well. But let's attempt this one, right? So what I'm trying to do, let's see this one. I think I had the command here, right? Yeah, this is the command echo SQLnet authentication services to none. So this is the parameter. I'm going to pass that one to Oracle Home Admin SQL.ora file, right? So press enter. So then now if I cat that file, right? See, we can check the content, right? Yeah, cat. This is the file Oracle Home where I enter the value, right? So now you can see we have the new entry SQLnet authentication to none. So now if I try to authenticate sys without a password like earlier, right? Let's try in this way first, right? So this is not allowed now. So I must enter a password. So that is what I can't, right? So I must enter a password. Okay. So if I enter the correct password, it will let me in like that. So in production environment, we must introduce this. Otherwise, anyone who has SysDB access, not only, I mean, who has admin rights to operating system will be allowed to the database as well as a SysDB user. Right? It's a dangerous thing. Right. So even if I try the other method, let's try this one, right? This method, you can see even now it is blocking now, not allowed, right? Because what I have done, I have stopped all other authentication methods to the database except the password authentication. So now what has happened, only the password authentication is allowed because I have blocked all the things. I am telling do not allow any other authentications but the password authentication. That is what I mean by none. So this explanation is there at the bottom. So if you want to further details, you can refer to this documentation. Explanations is there. So I have given the 12.2 explanation, 12C and a 19C explanation as well as 21C. There's no big difference between these for this parameter, but let's go for 19C for the time being. So we can go for 21C as well. We are working on 12.2, but I'm just going for 19C database. So this is the parameter SQLnet authentication services. And if you go down, you can see it says default to all, but we didn't have the parameter on the file SQL.ora file. So these are the possible values. You can see none, no authentication, only the password is allowed. Right? If I say none, a password must be provided. Valid username and password to access it. That means database authentication is only allowed, right? If I say none. All means what? All means for all authentication methods. So it will try all. What are all authentication methods? You can see BEQ, KBROS, NT authentication, Windows native authentication, Radius, props, right? So you can see there are different type of authentications are possible in Oracle database, right? Remote authentication also here, right? I mean, you can do network authentication as well remotely. So these are different type of authentication. We need to enable these things by installing this like KBROS and Radius. Right, you need to configure those things. But at the moment, what I have done, I have disabled all by putting none and allowing only database authentication. So that is what. Right? You can just go to this detail. This is from documentation, right? This is from Oracle documentation, very comprehensive. Since I came here, let me just tell you that one as well. Later, I will explain this one, how to refer to documentation. Because I think in the introduction, I have shown you certain things, but so this is very comprehensive, very easy to use, total free Oracle documentation. You can just go here, and if I click Oracle database, it will tell you the which version you want. Right now, for example, let's say I want to 18, 19, all the versions are there. Let's say I want to get the latest version, right? Okay, let's say I want to learn on okay, let's go to administration topics, right? And that we have something called database administrator guide. But I would advise, since these are beginner sessions, I'd advise you to start from concepts, Oracle database concepts. So concepts are explaining everything very clearly, right? So from the very beginning, they are explaining. So you can see introduction to Oracle database, right? So what is a schema? We learn anything, we will learn those things here. I'll be guiding you on those things, but this is for extra reference. No need to buy books from the market, right? So just, and again, don't go for Google search, searching for Oracle knowledge. Just look at the documentation. It's totally free. And I have given, explained you the other things like by example series and those things, right? And if I, for example, if you want to learn about Oracle database architecture, still we didn't start in deep dive with architecture. We will do it very soon. So you can see the database architecture, but this is the multi-tenancy architecture, right? Multi-tenancy architecture, which we will do later, right? That means once these beginner sessions finish, the second part of the beginner session will be multi-tenancy architecture. But initially, we need to learn the traditional architecture. So that is we are heading now. That is where we are heading. We'll come to the multi-tenant architecture, and we have PDB, CDB architecture is here, pluggable and container database, and you can see very nicely explained. So just refer to this one as well, documentation, right? Okay, so that is that, and so that is how you stop this unauthorized authentication and introduce a second layer of authentication for the database. Okay, so that is that, and getting familiar with Oracle database instance activity continues. Okay, now we are just starting the architecture, touching upon the architecture. So I'm not going to do a deep dive here. That we will do in a separate lesson because it's going to be a 2 to 3 hours explanation on architecture. But I'll be doing smaller sessions. So this is just to introduce now. These are beginner session. Now still we are on our second document, right? Second document, we are just following the database login process. That is what we are focusing on at the moment. But to support that, we need to understand this Oracle database instance as well, right? So getting familiar with Oracle instance, right? And defining what is Oracle instance, you can say theoretically database instance is collection of MMS and SGE, right? That is memory structure and background processes, right? MMS and BGP, right? Not SGE. You can see MMS and BGP. Another name for MMS is SGE, right? MMS is memory management structures. SGE is system global area. So all the memory management structures together, we can give one name called system global area. Along memory structures known as shared global area, system global, that's what, right? So Oracle instance, theoretically, collection of memory structures and background process. Now you can see the picture here. Anyway, there's a better picture than this, but we can make it larger. I think now it's much clearer for you, right? Better picture in a sense, this is also from Oracle, I think, interactive guide. So that is also a very good explanation, right? But you may think this is a little bit complex because I have a simplified picture at the bottom, I think, right? we are coming to this one, right? So this is very much more simplified one, but let's try to get the idea from here, right? So should be able to, right? Okay, so what it says theoretically, database instance collection and memory structure. So what are memory structures? You can see these are memory structures. So this is instance SGA, no, system global area. We have buffer pool. We have non-default buffer pools, like that is we have multiple memory structures, right? Not memory structures. We have this multiple block supports. That's why we say 2K, 8K, 16K. That we will learn later, right? But anyway, on system global area, the main, we can say there are mainly several memory structures. Now here the focus is on what is known as a database buffer cache, right? The total thing is database buffer cache, where whatever records you are fetching in from the data files will get stored here. That is database buffer cache. But not only this, you have here, you can see you have something called shared pool area on the left, right? Shared pool area, and we have large pool. And not only that, we have redo log buffer. They are presenting in a different way, and we have flashback as well. So mainly memory structures are what? Database buffer cache, shared pool, and large pool. But large pool is also optional, right? So mainly there are three. What are the three? Shared pool, database buffer cache, and redo log buffer. Those are the main three, right? So don't worry about this. What is this flashback and all? That's why the picture is a little bit complex, but don't worry, we need to learn everything. So, but little by little we will learn. But I just want to, I mean, take your curiosity also. That's why I'm just showing this picture at once without showing you a simplified picture. So memory structures means what are the key memory structures? Database buffer cache. This is the main thing. We have shared pool and we have redo log buffer. So those are three memory structures. And not only that, they are telling what instance is equal to memory structures plus background processes. No, BGP, background process. What are the background processes? We have the background process, right? So you can see I have given a checkpoint, DB writer, and log writer. These are the things, right? And yeah, so there's another picture here which shows the background process as well, right? Anyway, so we need to spend a little bit of time here understanding this, and what it says theoretically instance is collection of memory structures and background process. That means there's a practical definition as well. No, it says theoretically. No, so practically instance is equal to Oracle database. That's what it says. Why? Because the instance is without the instance we can't keep the database up and running. Okay, so we are coming to a very interesting topic. So and let me stop here because this is we need to go into more detail, right? So let's start this one again with the PO session, PO new session. I'll meet you soon in the next session. All right, so if you like the video, you can put a subscribe. I'll meet you soon. Bye bye, have a great time.